He was the prophet's caller, the man who went from a slave, tortured every single day, to a hero promised Jannah. This is Bilal ibn Rabah. Bilal lived as an ordinary slave until Islam arrived. He was the seventh man to embrace the faith, and the very first African Muslim. But everything changed on the day he walked through the heart of Mecca and did the unthinkable. He looked at the idols, the statues the Meccans worshipped, and he spat on them. That one act of defiance changed his life and history forever. The Meccan leaders burst into his house and took Bilal by force. Umayyah ibn Khalaf declared that he would leave Islam the very next day. There was no one to save him. The next day was the start of the hardest days in Islamic history. Umayyah waited until the sun reached its peak temperature of 52 degrees Celsius. The torture was divided into 4 levels, and the 4th level nearly pushed our hero Bilal to his limit. Level 1, the Ramda, the insanely hot volcanic sand of Mecca. The sand's temperature was over 70 degrees. By the way, you can fry an egg at just 62 degrees, so Bilal's body was literally being cooked. Level 2, the massive rock, a giant boulder that took 4 men to lift. It weighed nearly 120 kilograms. It's like having a refrigerator crushing your chest. Level 3, the whip. He was being whipped by the strongest men in Mecca, while the rock was on his chest and the sand was at its peak heat. Bilal could have ended all of this by saying just one word, but the legend was as strong as a mountain. In the middle of all this agony, he only said, Ahadun, Ahad. Level 4, the moral torture. He was led with an iron chain through the streets, while kids threw hard rocks at his face. Umayyah promised to do this to him every day until the last day of his life. But after weeks of this nightmare, Al-Faraj, the day of relief, finally came. A shadow blocked out the sun. It was Abu Bakr. He looked Umayyah in the eye and offered a deal of total madness. His own strongest slave, his family, and a pile of gold, just for this one broken man. Umayyah snatched the deal instantly, laughing at the worthless slave. But as the weight was lifted and Bilal took his first full breath in weeks, Abu Bakr knelt in the burning sand and told the tyrants, "You think you sold me a slave, but I just bought my master." Freedom was just the beginning. The voice that whispered Ahad under a 120-kilo boulder was now chosen to echo across the skies of Medina. Bilal became the first Mu'adhin of Islam. He was the first minister of finance. He held the keys to the treasury. Yet, he stayed humble, saying, "I am just an Abyssinian who yesterday was only a slave." Then came the Battle of Badr. Through the dust and the blood, Bilal locks eyes with a familiar face. Umayyah ibn Khalaf. The tyrant wasn't sitting under a silk umbrella anymore. He was terrified, running. Bilal didn't hesitate. He pointed his sword and shouted, "The head of disbelief! Umayyah, may I not survive if he survives!" The slave was now the master of the moment. Justice was finally served. Years later, during the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet told Bilal to climb the Kaaba. The same feet that were once blistering in 70-degree sand were now standing on the highest point of the holy city. But then came the darkest day, the day Prophet Muhammad passed away. Bilal's heart was shattered. He tried to give the adhan, but when he reached the Prophet's name, his voice broke. He couldn't handle the memory. He left Medina for years. In his final days, the Prophet's grandsons asked him for one last adhan. When his beautiful voice hit the air, the entire city of Medina froze. Women ran into the streets, crying. It was like the Prophet was still alive. Shortly after, Bilal lay on his deathbed. His wife wept, calling it a tragedy. But Bilal opened his eyes, smiled, and corrected her. "No. What a joy. Tomorrow, I will meet my loved ones."